Hello chat. Hey Blue, welcome in. We're doing a little reading ASMR stream today. I'm going to turn the background music off. I'm going to just chatting. Okay. We're reading the Odyssey today. Because I feel like it's a good place to start with like a classic book. I should check that everything's working. Because it's not connected to YouTube. Hey Farah, welcome in. I think YouTube was just tweaking. Maybe. Yeah, it was just kind of tweaking, but I think I am live on YouTube. Okay, yeah. Okay, cool. It's fine. Okay, we're reading the Odyssey. As I said, is my background music off? Yeah. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I haven't streamed in a little bit. Which means low-key I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Hey Tails, welcome in. Okay, we're ready. Okay. Tell me, Muse, of that man so ready at need, who wandered far and wide, after he had sacked the sacred citadel of Troy, and many were the men whose towns he saw, and whose mind he learnt, and many the woes he suffered in his heart on the deep, striving to win his own life and the return of his company. Nay, but even so he saved not his company, though he desired it sore. For through the blindness of these things, Goddess, daughter of Zeus, whence over. This book is crazy. Thou hast heard thereof, declare thou even unto us. These are just like. Okay, hang on. There's like a second translation here. This guy just has like the beginning like 4 times. Low-key. Okay. But we're in a place where okay, I get what's happening now. It's okay. No one worry. I know how to read. Tell me, O Muse, of that ingenuous hero who travelled far and wide after he had sacked the famous town of Troy. Many cities did he visit, and many were the nations with whose manners and customs he was acquainted. Moreover, he suffered much by sea, while trying to save his own life and bring his men safely home. But do what he might, he could not save his men, for they perished through their own sheer folly in eating the cattle of the sun god, Hyperion. So the god prevented them from ever reaching home. Tell me too about all these things, O daughter of Jove. Who's Jove? Hey, Silence, welcome in. I feel like I'm missing context, because who's Jove? O daughter of Jove, from whatsoever source you may know them. So now all who escaped death in battle or by shipwreck had gotten safely home, except Ulysses? I think it's Ulysses. And he, though he was willing to return to his wife and country, was detained by the goddess Calypso, who had gotten him into a large cave and wanted to marry him. But as years went by, there came a time when the gods settled that he should go back to Ithaca. Even then, however, when he was among his own people, his troubles were not yet over. Nevertheless, all the gods had now begun to pity him except Neptune, who still persecuted him without ceasing and would not let him go home. Now Neptune had gone off to the Ethiopians, who were at the world's end, and lie in two halves, the one looking west and the other east. He had gone there to accept a hecatomb of sheep and oxen. Hecatomb? And was enjoying himself at his festival. But the other gods met in the house of Olympian Jove, and the sire of gods and men spoke first. At that moment he was thinking of Odysseus. He had been killed by... These word names are crazy. What these words are. What these names are. See now, how men lay blame upon us gods, for is after all nothing but their own folly. Look at Odysseus. He must needs make love to how do you say? Agamemnon's wife unrighteously and then kill Agamemnon, though he knew it would be the death of him. For I sent Mercury to warn him not to do either of those things. I keep losing my space. Okay, we're going with Percy Jackson, I think. We're running it back, and we're going with Percy. Okay, I'm doing my little marker so I know where I restarted. Look, I didn't want to be a half-blood. If you're reading this because you think you might be one, my advice is close this book right now. Believe whatever lie your mum or dad told you about your birth, and try to lead a normal life. Being a half-blood is dangerous. It's scary. Most of the time, it gets you killed in painful and nasty ways. If you're a normal kid reading this because you think it's fiction, great, read on. I envy you for being able to believe that none of this ever happened. But if you recognize yourself in these pages, if you feel something stirring inside, stop reading immediately. You might be one of us, and once you know that, it's only a matter of time before they sense it too, and they'll come for you. Don't say I didn't warn you. My name is Percy Jackson. I'm 12 years old. Until a few months ago, I was a boarding student at Yancey Academy, a private school for troubled kids in upstate New York. Am I a trouble kid? Yeah, you could say that. I could start at any point in my short, miserable life to prove it. But things really started getting bad last May, when our 6th grade class took a field trip to Manhattan. 28 mental case kids and 2 teachers on a yellow school bus head into the Metropolitan Museum of Art to look at ancient Greek and Roman stuff. I know, it sounds like torture. Most Yancey field trips were. But Mr. Brenner, our Latin teacher, was leading this trip, so I had hopes. Mr. Brenner was a middle-aged guy in a motorized wheelchair. He had thinning hair and a scruffy beard, and a frayed tweed jacket, which always smelled like coffee. You wouldn't think he'd be cool, but he told stories and jokes and let us all play games in class. He also had this awesome collection of Roman armor and weapons, so he was the only teacher whose class didn't put me to sleep. I hoped the trip would be okay. At least, I hoped that for once I wouldn't get in trouble. Boy, was I wrong. See, bad things happen to me on field trips. Like at my 5th grade school, where we went to the Saratoga battlefield. I had this accident with a Revolutionary War cannon. I wasn't aiming for the school bus, but of course I got expelled anyway. And before that, at my 4th grade school, when we took a behind-the-scenes tour of the Marine World Shark Pool, I sort of hit the wrong lever on the catwalk, and our class took an unplanned swim. And the time before that, well, you get the idea. This trip, I was determined to be good. All the way into the city, I put up with Nancy Boba Fett, the freckly red-headed kleptomaniac girl, hitting my best friend, Grover, in the back of the head with chunks of peanut butter and ketchup sandwich. Grover was an easy target. He was scrawny. He cried when he got frustrated. He must have been held back several grades, because he was the only 6th grader with acne and the start of a wispy beard on his chin. On top of all that, he was crippled. He had a note excusing him from PE for the rest of his life because he had some kind of muscular disease in his legs. He walked funny, like every step hurt him, but don't let that fool you. You should have seen him run when it was enchilada day at the cafeteria. Anyway, Nancy Boba Fett was throwing wads of sandwich that stuck in his curly brown hair, and she knew I couldn't do anything back to her because I was already on probation. The headmaster had threatened me with death by in-school suspension if anything bad, embarrassing, or even mildly entertaining happened on this trip. I'm going to kill her, I mumbled. Grover tried to calm me down. It's okay, I like peanut butter. He dodged another piece of Nancy's lunch. That's it. I started to get up, but Grover pulled me back to my seat. You're already on probation, he reminded me. You know he'll get blamed if anything happens. Looking back on it, hey Vsauce, I'm real. I'm real and I'm here. No recording. Hey Hedgie, welcome in. I wish I'd decked Nancy right then and there. In-school suspension would have been nothing compared to the mess I was about to get myself into. Don't be sorry, I get it. Welcome in. Mr. Brunner led the museum tour. He rode up front in his wheelchair, guiding us through the big echoey galleries, past marble statues and glass cases full of really old black and orange poetry. Why did I read poetry? Black and orange pottery. It blew my mind that this stuff had survived for 2,000, 3,000 years. He guided us around a 4-meter tall stone column with a big sphinx on the top, and started telling us how it was a grave marker for a girl about our age. He guided us around for a girl about our age. He told us about the carvings on the sides. I was trying to listen to what he had to say, because it was kind of interesting, but everyone around me was talking, and every time I told them to shut up, the teacher chaperone, Mrs. Dodds, would give me the evil eye. Mrs. Dodds was this little maths teacher from Georgia, who always wore a black leather jacket, even though she was 50 years old. She looked mean enough to write to Harley right into your locker. She had come to Yancey halfway through the year, when our maths teacher had a nervous breakdown. From our first day, Mrs. Dodds loved Nancy, and figured I was devil spawn. She'd point her correct finger at me and say, "Now, honey." Real sweet. And I knew I was going to get after-school detention for a month. One time, after she'd made me erase answers out of old maths workbooks until midnight, I told Grover I didn't think Mrs. Dodds was human. He looked at me real serious and said, "You're absolutely right." Mr. Brunner kept talking about Greek funeral art. Finally, Nancy snickered something about the naked guy on the stele, and I turned around and said, Will you shut up?" It came out louder than I meant to. The whole group laughed. Mr. Brunner stopped his story. "Mr. Jackson," he said, "do you have a comment?" My face was totally red. I said, "No, sir." Mr. Brunner pointed to one of the pictures on the stele. "Perhaps you'll tell us what the picture represents." I looked at the carving and felt a flush of relief, because I actually recognized it. "That's Kronos eating his kid, right?" "Yes," Mr. Brunner said, obviously not satisfied. "And he did this because..." Well, I racked my brain. Kronos was the king god, and... God? Mr. Brunner asked. "Titan," I corrected myself. "And he didn't trust his kids, who were the gods. So Kronos ate them, right? But his wife had baby Zeus, and gave Kronos a rock to eat instead. And later, when Zeus grew up..." Hey Clone Squad, thank you for the follow. Welcome in. "When Zeus grew up, he tricked his dad Kronos into bathing up his brothers and sisters." We're reading Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. The first Percy Jackson in the series. "And so there was this big fight between the gods and the Titans," I continued, "and the gods won." It is the unwanted god. I think he's from Zeus. I know he's unwanted. And I'm like, it's either Zeus or Poseidon. I feel like it might be Poseidon. I've never actually read this book. I've seen the musical, but I don't really remember it. I think it's Poseidon. I think he's Poseidon's babby. How do you? Let me Google it. Hang on. Why is it spelled like that? Oh, I put in chat. That's such a weird way to spell Poseidon. I'd never even consider spelling it that way. Behind me, Nancy mumbled to a friend. Like we're going to use this in real life. Like it's going to say on our job applications, please explain why Cronus ate his kids. And why, Mr. Jackson? Brenner said. To paraphrase Miss Boba Fett's excellent question, does this matter in real life? Busted, Grover muttered. Shut up, Nancy hissed. Her face even brighter red than her hair. At least Nancy got in trouble too. Mr. Brenner was the only one who ever caught her saying anything wrong. He had radar ears. I thought about his question and shrugged. I don't know, sir. I see, Mr. Brenner looked disappointed. Well, half credit, Mr. Jackson. Zeus did indeed feed Cronus a mixture of mustard and wine, which made him disgorge his other 5 children, who, of course, being immortal gods, had been living and growing up completely undigested in the Titan's stomach. That's kind of gross. That's icky. I don't rock with that. Yes, I am doing a multi-stream. The gods defeated their father, sliced him into pieces with his own scythe, and scattered his remains at Tartarus, the darkest part of the underworld. On that happy note, it's time for lunch. Mrs. Dodds, would you lead us back outside? I didn't know that. I don't know much about the Greek mythology, to be honest. But that does make sense. I know Hades is like god of the underworld. But isn't Hades like the only one that's kind of based? And all the others are like super duper fucked up. Like crazily fucked up. The class drifted off. The girls holding their stomachs and the guys pushing each other around and acting like doofuses. Grover and I were about to follow when Mr. Brenner said, Mr. Jackson. Hades is really hot. In every iteration I see him and he's really attractive, especially in the game. I rock with Hades heavy. I think he might be my favourite. I told Grover to keep going. Then I turned towards Mr. Brenner. Sir? Mr. Brenner had this look that wouldn't let you go. Intense brown eyes that could have been 1,000 years old and had seen everything. You must learn the answer to my question, Mr. Brenner told me. About Titans, about real life, and how your studies apply to it. Oh. When you learn from me, he said, it's vitally important. I expect you to treat it as such. I will only expect the best from you, Percy Jackson. Hey Desi, welcome in. I wanted to get angry. This guy pushed me so hard. I mean, sure, it was kind of cool on tournament days when he dressed up in a suit of Roman armor and shouted, "What ho?" and challenged us, sword pointed against chalk, to run the board and name every Greek and Roman person who had ever lived and their mother, and what god they worshipped. But Mr. Brenner expected me to be as good as everybody else. Despite the fact I have dyslexia and attention deficit disorder, he's just like me for real. Maybe I am a demigod. Who do you think my dad would be, guys? Or my mum, I guess. I feel like dad's more likely. And I had never made it above a C- in my life. I don't want Zeus to be my dad. He's like the worst one. Zeus sucks. He is everyone's baby daddy, though. You're right. I'm not special enough to have someone different. I feel like Hermes kind of goes hard, though. I rock with Hermes heavy. He didn't expect me to be as good as. He expected me to be better. And I just couldn't learn all those names and facts, much less spell them correctly. I mumbled something about trying harder, while Mr. Bronner took one long, sad look at Stella, like he'd been at the girl's funeral. He told me to go outside and eat my lunch. The class gathered on the front footsteps of the museum, where we could watch the foot traffic along Fifth Avenue. Overhead, a huge storm was brewing, the clouds blacker than I had ever seen over the city. I figured maybe it was global warming or something, because the weather all across New York State had been weird since Christmas. We'd had massive snowstorms, flooding, wildfires from lightning strikes. I wouldn't have been surprised if it was a hurricane blowing in. Nobody else seemed to notice. Some of the guys were pelting pigeons with Lunchable crackers. Nancy was trying to pickpocket something from a lady's bag, and of course, Mrs. Dodds wasn't seeing a thing. Grover and I sat on the edge of the fountain, away from the others. We thought that maybe if we did that, everybody wouldn't know we were from that school. The school of freaks who couldn't make it any elsewhere. Detention? Grover asked. Nah, I said. Not from Bronner. I wish he'd lay off me sometimes. I mean, I'm not a genius. Grover didn't say anything for a while. Then, when I thought he was going to give some deep philosophical comment to make me feel better, he said, Can I have your apple? He's so real for that. I didn't have much of an appetite, so I let him take it. I watched the stream of cabs going down Fifth Avenue and thought about my mum's apartment, only a little ways uptown from where we sat. I hadn't seen her since Christmas. I wanted so bad to jump in a taxi and head home. She'd hug me and be glad to see me, but she'd be disappointed too. She'd send me right back to Yancey, remind me that I had to try harder, even if this was the sixth school I've in 6 years, and was probably going to get kicked out again. I wouldn't be able to stand that sad look she'd give me. Mr. Bronner parked his wheelchair at the base of the handicap ramp. He ate celery while he read a paperback novel. A red umbrella stuck from the back of his chair, making it look like a motorized cafe table. I was about to unwrap my sandwich when Nancy appeared in front of me with her ugly friends. I guess she got tired of stealing from the tourists, and dumped her half-eaten lunch in Grover's lap. Oops, she grinned at me with her crooked teeth. Her freckles were orange, as if somebody had spray-painted her face with liquid Cheetos. I tried to stay cool. The school counselor had told me a million times, count to 10, get control of your temper. I was so mad my mind went blank. A wave roared in my ears. I don't remember touching her, but the next thing I knew, Nancy was sitting on her butt in the fountain, screaming. Percy pushed me. Mrs. Dawes materialized next to us. Some of the kids were whispering, Did you see the water? Like it grabbed her. I didn't know what they were talking about. All I knew was that I was in trouble again. As soon as Mrs. Dawes was sure poor little Nancy was okay, promising to get her a new shirt at the museum gift shop, Mrs. Dawes turned on me. There was a triumphant fire in her eyes, as if I'd done something she'd been waiting for all semester. Now, honey. I know, I grumbled. I'm up for racing textbooks. That wasn't the right thing to say. Come with me, Mrs. Dodd said. Wait, Grover yelped. It was me. I pushed her. I stared at him, stunned. I couldn't believe he was trying to cover for me. Mrs. Dodd scared Grover to death. She glared at him so hard his whiskery chin trembled. I don't think so, Mr. Underwood, she said. But you will stay here. Grover looked at me desperately. It's okay, man, I told him. Thanks for trying. Honey, Mrs. Dodd barked at me. Now. Nancy smirked. I gave her my deluxe I'll kill you later stare. I then turned to Mrs. Dodd to face Mrs. Dodds, but she wasn't there. She was standing at the museum entrance, way at the top of the steps, gesturing impatiently at me to come on. How'd she get there so fast? I have moments like that a lot, when my brain falls asleep or something, and the next thing I know, I've missed something, as if a puzzle piece fell out of the universe and left me staring at the blank piece placed behind it. The school counselor told me this was a part of ADHD, my brain misinterpreting things. I wasn't so sure. I went after Mrs. Dodds. Halfway up the steps, I glanced back at Grover. He was looking pale, cutting his eyes between me and Mr. Brunner, like he wanted Mr. Brunner to notice what was going on. But Mr. Brunner was absorbed in his novel. I looked back up. Mrs. Dodds had disappeared again. She was now inside the building, at the end of the entrance hall. Okay, I thought. She's going to make me buy a new shirt for Nancy at the gift shop. But apparently that wasn't the plan. I followed her deeper into the museum. When I finally caught up to her, we were back in the Greek and Roman section. Except for us, the gallery was empty. Mrs. Dodd stood with her arms crossed in the front of a big marble frieze of gods. She was making this weird noise in her throat, like growling. Even without the noise, I would have been nervous. It's weird being alone with a teacher, especially Mrs. Dodds. Something about the way she looked at the frieze, as if she wanted to pulverize it. You've been giving us problems, honey, she said. I did the safe thing. I said, yes, ma'am. She tugged on the cuffs of her leather jacket. Did you really think you would get away with it? The look in her eyes was beyond mad. It was evil. She's a teacher, I thought nervously. It's not like she's going to hurt me. I said, I'll try harder, ma'am. Thunder shook the building. We are not fools, Percy Jackson, Mrs. Dodd said. It was only a matter of time before we found you out. Confess and you will suffer less pain. I didn't know what she was talking about. All I could think of was that the teachers must have found the illegal stash of candy I've been selling out of my dorm room. Or maybe they'd realize I got my essay on Tom Sawyer from the internet without ever reading the book, and now they were going to take away my grade. Or worse, they were going to make me read the book. Well, she demanded. Ma'am, Your time is up, she hissed. Then the weirdest thing happened. Her eyes began to glow like barbecue coals. Her fingers stretched, turning into talons. Her jacket melted into large, leathery wings. She wasn't human. She was a shriveled hag with bat wings and claws and a mouthful of yellow fangs. And she was about to slice me to ribbons. Then things got stranger. Mr. Brunner, who'd been out in front of the museum a minute before, wheeled his chair into the doorway of the gallery, holding a pen in his hand. What ho, Percy, he shouted and tossed me the pen through the air. Mrs. Dawes lunged at me. With a yelp, I dodged and felt talons slash the air next to my ear. I snatched the ballpoint pen out of the air. But when it hit my hand, it wasn't a pen anymore. It was a sword. Mr. Brunner's bronze sword, which he always used on tournament day. Mrs. Dodds spun towards me with a murderous look in her eyes. My knees were jelly. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the sword. She snarled. Die, honey. and she flew straight at me. Absolute terror ran through my body. I did the only thing that came naturally. I swung the sword. The metal blade hit her shoulder and passed clean through her body as if she was made out of water. Mrs. Dodds was a sandcastle and a power fan. She exploded into yellow powder, vaporized on the spot, leaving nothing but the smell of sulfur and a dying screech and a chill of evil in the air, as if those two glowing eyes were still watching me. I was alone. There was a ballpoint pen in my hand. Mr. Brunner wasn't there. Nothing was there but me. My hands were still trembling. My lunch must have been contaminated with magic mushrooms or something. Had I imagined the whole thing? I went back outside. It started to rain. Grover was sitting by the fountain, a museum map tented over his head. Nancy was still standing there, soaked from her swim in the fountain, grumbling to her ugly friends. When she saw me, she said, "I hope Mrs. Kerr wiped your butt." I said, "Who?" "Our teacher." "Duh." I blinked. We had no teacher named Mrs. Kerr. I asked Nancy what she was talking about. She just rolled her eyes and turned away. I asked Grover where Mrs. Dodds was. He said, "Who?" But he paused first, and he wouldn't look at me, so I thought he was messing with me. "Not funny, man," I told him. "This is serious." Thunder boomed overhead. I saw Mr. Brunner sitting under his red umbrella, reading his book as if he'd never moved. I went over to him. He looked up, a little distracted. That would be my pen. Please bring your own writing utensil in the future, Mr. Jackson." I handed it over. I didn't even realize I was still holding it. "Sir," I said, "where's Mrs. Dodds?" He stared at me blankly. "Who?" "The chaperone, Mrs. Dodds, the maths teacher." He frowned and sat forward, looking mildly concerned. "Percy, there is no Mrs. Dodds on this trip. As far as I know, there has never been a Mrs. Dodds at Yancey Academy. Are you feeling alright?" We made it to chapter 2. How long is chapter 2? Is it like the same length, kinda? Yeah, pretty much. How long is this book? It's like 240 pages. Like 238 actually. Oh, I've lost my place. Okay. We're back. I was used to the occasional lit experience, but usually they were over quickly. This 24/7 hallucination was more than I could handle. For the rest of the school year, the entire campus seemed to be playing some kind of trick on me. The students acted as if they were completely and totally convinced that Mrs. Kerr, a perky blonde woman whom I'd never seen in my life until she got on our bus at the end of the field trip, had been our maths teacher since Christmas. Every so often, I would spring a Mrs. Dodds reference on somebody just to see if I could trip them up, but they would stare at me like I was a psycho. It got so I almost believed them. Mrs. Dodds never existed. Almost. But Grover couldn't fool me. When I mentioned the name Dodds to him, he would hesitate, then claim she didn't exist. But I knew he was lying. Something was going on. Something had happened at that museum. I didn't have much time to think about it during the days, but at night, visions of Mrs. Dodds' talons and leathery wings would wake me in a cold sweat. The freak weather continued, which didn't help my mood. One night, a thunderstorm blew out the windows in my dorm room. A few days later, the biggest tornado ever spotted in Hudson Valley touched down only 50 miles from Yancey Academy. One of the current of and we studied in social studies class was the unusual number of small planes that had gone down in sudden schools in the Atlantic that year. I started feeling cranky and irritable most of the time. My grades slipped from D's to F's. I got into fights with Nancy and her friends. I was sent into the hallway in almost every class. Finally, when our English teacher, Mr. Nicole, asked me for the millionth time why I was too lazy to study for spelling tests, I snapped. I called him an odd sot. I wasn't even sure what it meant, but it sounded good. The headmaster sent my mum a letter the following week, making it official. I would not be invited back next year to Yancey Academy. Fine, I told myself. Just fine. I was homesick. I wanted to be with my mum in our little apartment in the Upper East Side, even if I had to go to public school and put up with my obnoxious stepfather and his stupid poker parties. And yet, there were things I'd miss at Yancey. The view of the woods out my dorm window, the Hudson River in the distance, the smell of pine trees. I'd miss Grover. He'd been a good friend, even if he was a little strange. I worried how he'd survive next year without me. I'd miss Latin class too. Mr. Brenner's crazy tournament days and his faith that I could do well. As exam week got closer, Latin was the only test I studied for. I hadn't forgotten what Mr. Brenner had told me about his subject being life and death for me. I wasn't sure why, but I started to believe him. The evening before my final, I got so frustrated I threw the Cambridge Guide to Greek Mythology across my dorm room. Words had started swinging off the page, circling my head, the letters doing 180s as if they were riding skateboards. There was no way I was going to remember the difference between Chiron and Sharon. And conjugating those Latin verbs, forget it. I paced the room, feeling like ants were crawling around inside my shirt. I remembered Mr. Brenner's serious expression, his 1,000-year-old eyes. I will only accept the best from you, Percy Jackson. I took a breath and picked up the mythology book. I never asked a teacher for help before. Maybe if I talked to Mr. Brenner, he could give me some pointers. At least, I could apologize for the big fat F I was about to score on his exam. I didn't want to leave Yancey Academy with him thinking I hadn't tried. I walked downstairs to the faculty offices. Most of them were dark and empty, but Mr. Brenner's door was ajar, light from his window stretching across the hallway floor. I was 3 steps from the door handle when I heard voices inside the office. Mr. Brenner asked a question. A voice that was definitely Grover's said, "Worried about Percy, sir." I froze. I'm not usually an eavesdropper, but I dare you to try not listening if you hear your best friend talking about you to an adult. I inched closer. "Alone this summer," Grover was saying. "I mean, a kindly one in the school. Now that we know for sure, and they know too, we would only make matters worse by rushing him," Mr. Brenner said. "We need the boy to mature more. But he may not have time. The summer solstice deadline will have to be resolved without him, Grover. Let him enjoy the ignorance while he can." "Sir, he saw her." "His imagination," Mr. Brenner insisted. "The mist over the students and staff will be enough to convince him of that." "Sir, I can't fail in my duties again." Grover's voice was choked with emotion. "You know what that would mean." "You haven't failed, Grover," Mr. Brenner said kindly. "I should have seen her for what she was. Now let's just worry about keeping Percy alive until next autumn." The mythology book dropped out of my hand and hit the floor with a thud. Mr. Brenner went silent. My heart hammering, I picked up the book and backed down the hallway. I slid across the lighted glass of Brenner's office door. The shadow of something much taller than my wheelchair-bound teacher holding something that looked suspiciously like an archer's bow. I opened the nearest door and slipped inside. A few seconds later, I heard a slow clop, 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 like muffled wood blocks. Then a sound like an animal snuffling right outside my door. A large dark shape paused in front of the glass, then moved on. A bead of sweat trickled down my neck. Somewhere in the hallway, Mr. Brenner spoke. Nothing, he murmured. My nerves haven't been right since the winter solstice. Mine neither, Grover said, but I could have sworn. Go back to the dorm, Mr. Brenner told him. You've got a long day of exams tomorrow. Don't remind me. The lights went out in Mr. Brenner's office. I waited in the dark for what seemed like forever. Finally, I slipped out into the hallway and made my way back into the dorm. Grover was lying on his bed, studying his Latin exam notes, like he'd been there all night. Hey, he said, bleary-eyed. You going to be ready for this test? I didn't answer. You look awful, he frowned. Is everything okay? Just tired. I turned so he couldn't read my expression, and started getting ready for bed. I didn't understand what I'd heard downstairs. I wanted to believe I imagined the whole thing. But one thing was clear. Grover and Mr. Brenner were talking about me behind my back. They thought I was in some kind of danger. The next afternoon, I was leaving the 3-hour Latin exam, my eyes swimming with all the Greek and Roman names I misspelled. Mr. Brenner called me back inside. For a moment, I was worried he found out about my eavesdropping the night before, but that didn't seem to be the problem. Percy, he said, don't be discouraged about leaving Yancey. It's for the best. His tone was kind, but the words still embarrassed me. Even though he was speaking quietly, the other kids finishing the test could hear. Nancy smirked at me and made sarcastic little kissing motions with her lips. I mumbled, okay, sir. I mean, Mr. Brennan wheeled his chair back and forth, like he wasn't sure what to say. This isn't the right place for you. It was only a matter of time. My eyes stung. Here's my favourite teacher, in front of the class, telling me I couldn't handle it. After saying he believed in me all year, now he was telling me I was destined to get kicked out. No, Mr. Brenner said. Oh, confound it all. What I'm trying to say, you're not normal, Percy. That's nothing to be... Thanks, I blurted out. Thanks a lot, sir, for reminding me. Percy, but I was already gone. On the last day of term, I shoved my clothes into a suitcase. The other guys were joking around, talking about their vacation plans. One of them was going on a hiking trip to Switzerland. Another was cruising the Caribbean for a month. They were juvenile delinquents like me, but they were rich juvenile delinquents. Their daddies were executives or ambassadors or celebrities. I was a nobody from a family of nobodies. They asked me what I'd be doing this summer. I told them I was going back to the city. What I didn't tell them is that I'd have to get a summer job walking dogs or selling magazine subscriptions, and spend my free time worrying about where I'd go to school in autumn. Oh, one of the guys said. That's cool. They went back to their conversation as if I never existed. The only person I dreaded saying goodbye to was Grover, but as it turned out, I didn't have to. He booked a ticket to Manhattan on the same Greyhound as I had, so there we were together, heading into the city. During the whole bus ride, Grover kept glancing nervously down the aisle, watching the other passengers. It occurred to me that he'd always acted nervous and fidgety when we left Yancey, as if he expected something bad to happen. Before, I'd always assumed he was worried about getting teased, but there was nobody to tease him on the Greyhound. Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore. I said, looking for kindly ones. Grover nearly jumped out of his seat. What do you mean? I confessed to eavesdropping on him and Mr. Brenner the night before. Grover's eye twitched. How much did you hear? Oh, not much. What's the summer solstice deadline? He winced. Look, Percy, I was just worried for you, see? I mean, hallucinating about demon math teachers. Grover. And I was telling Mr. Brennan that maybe you were overstressed or something. Because there was no such person as Mrs. Dodds, and Grover, you're a really, really bad liar. His ears turned pink. From his shirt pocket, he fished out a grubby business card. Hey Clout, welcome in. How are you doing? From his shirt pocket, he fished out a grubby business card. Just take this, okay, in case you need me this summer. The card was in fancy script, which was murder on my dyslexic eyes, but I finally made out something like Grover Underwood, Keeper, Half-Blood Hill, Long Island, New York. What's half? Don't say it out loud, he yelped. That's my, summer address. My heart sank. Grover had a summer home. I'd never considered that his family might be as rich as the others at Yancey. Okay, I said glumly. So, like, if I want to come visit your mansion, he nodded. Or if you need me. Why would I need you? It came out harsher than I meant to. Grover blushed right down to his Adam's apple. Look, Percy, the truth is, I kind of have to protect you. I stared at him. All year long, I'd gotten in fights keeping bullies away from him. I'd lost sleep, worrying that he'd get beaten up next year without me. And here he was, acting like he was the one who defended me. Grover, I said. What exactly are you protecting me from? There was a huge grinding noise under our feet. Black smoke poured from the dashboard, and the whole bus filled with a smell like rotten eggs. The driver cursed and limped the Greyhound over to the side of the highway. After a few minutes of clanking around in the engine compartment, the driver announced that we'd all have to get off. Grover and I filed outside with everybody else. We were on a stretch of country road. No place you'd notice if you didn't break down there. On our side of the highway was nothing but maple trees and litter from passing cars. On the other side, across 4 lanes of asphalt, shimmering with afternoon heat, was an old-fashioned fruit stand. The stuff on sale looked really good. Heaping boxes of blood-red cherries and apples, walnuts and apricots, jugs of cider in a clawfoot tub full of ice. There were no customers, just 3 old ladies sitting in rocking chairs in the shade of a maple tree, knitting the biggest pair of socks I'd ever seen. I mean, those socks were the size of sweaters, but they were clearly socks. The lady on the right knitted one of them. The lady on the left knitted the other. The lady in the middle held an enormous basket of electric blue yarn. All 3 women looked ancient, with pale faces wrinkled like fruit leather, silver hair tied back in white bandanas, bony arms sticking out of bleached cotton dresses. The weirdest thing was they seemed to be looking right at me. I looked over at Grover to say something about this, and saw the blood had drained from his face, his nose twitching. Grover, I said. Hey man. Tell me they're not looking at you. They are, aren't they? Yeah, would, huh? You think those socks would fit me? Not funny, Percy. Not funny at all. The old lady in the middle took out a huge pair of scissors, gold and silver, long-bladed, like shears. I heard Grover catch his breath. We're getting on the bus, he told me. Come on. What? I said. It's 1,000 degrees in there. Come on. He prized open the door and climbed inside, but I stayed back. Across the road, the old ladies were still watching me. The middle one cut the yarn, and I swear I could hear the snip across 4 lanes of traffic. Her 2 friends balled up the electric blue socks, leaving me wondering who they could possibly be for. At the rear of the bus, the driver wrenched a big chunk of smoking metal out of the engine compartment. The bus shuddered, and the engine roared back to life. The passengers cheered. He slapped the bus with his hat. Everybody on board. Once we got going, I started feeling feverish, as if I'd caught the flu. Grover didn't look much better. He was shivering, and his teeth were chattering. Grover? Yeah? What are you not telling me? He dabbed his forehead with his shirt sleeve. Percy, what did you see you back at the fruit stand? You mean the old ladies? What is it about them, man? They're not like Mrs. Dodds, are they? His expression was hard to read, but I got the feeling that fruit stand ladies were something much, much worse than Mrs. Dodds. He said, just tell me what you saw. The middle one took out her scissors and she cut the yarn. He closed his eyes and made a gesture with his fingers that might have been crossing himself. But it wasn't. It was something else. Something almost older. He said, you saw her snip the cord. Yeah, so? But even as I said it, I knew it was a big deal. This is not happening, Grover mumbled. He started chewing at his thumb. I don't want this to be like last time. What last time? Always 6th grade. They never get past 6th. Grover, I said, because he was really starting to scare me. What are you talking about? Let me walk you home from the bus station. Promise me. This seemed like a strange request to me, but I promised he could. Is it like a superstition or something? I asked. No answer. Grover, that snipping of the yarn. Does that mean somebody's going to die? He looked at me mournfully, like he was already picking the kinds of flowers I'd like best on my coffin. We're on chapter 3. That's kind of awesome. Okay. I think we should read out, because I need to get water and to eat and stuff and to edit videos before I go to bed. So everyone remember, we're on chapter 3 and we'll continue on Wednesday.